if you want to design a truss bridge, there's two ways you could go about it. The first way is to use the part menu. And with the part menu, we could just design individual popsicle sticks. So if I rotate my view so I'm looking at the front, and I use my cube that I've created, I'm just going to rename this popsicle stick 1. Now I just need to give it the dimensions of a popsicle stick. So the popsicle sticks are each about, they're each about 0.5 inches high. The thickness or the width is about 2/10 of an inch or 0.2, and each is about 6 inches long. So if I kind of zoom out or I auto zoom, you'll notice that I now have what's the rough shape of a popsicle stick. So what I can do now is I can use Command C and Command V to copy and paste this popsicle stick, and then I can just use the placement tool and I can just slide it along. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong thing here. I'm in axis. I need to go to position, so please make sure you're in position, not in axis. Nothing will happen. So in this case, now I can slide this down. Keep a little bit of overlap so that you can fuse that together really well when you go to do your analysis. So that's 2 popsicle sticks. I can then copy and paste that popsicle stick and move it a little bit further. And I can continue this process, so on and so forth, until you have whatever length or whatever number of popsicle stick, your design calls for. Of course I messed that up, so let's make this, I believe 15 inches might work. Okay. So now I've kind of got that one side, the base. You in the real world, you'd be gluing these popsicle sticks together, but I've got the base of my truss. Now what I can do is I can go back and copy and paste. And now I can use the angle and I can start to rotate these things. Now if I want a 45 degree, you'll notice that that rotates it the wrong way. I don't want it rotating out, I want it actually rotating up. So just to go underneath angle, now I go into axis. I don't want it rotating about the Z. I believe I want it rotated about the Y. So that's what I want, except I'd like it to go the other way. So I will make this negative 45 degrees. You may want something different. You may want negative 50 degrees. Maybe your design calls for 35. I'll go 35 for now. All right, so what I could do here is I could actually just copy and paste that one, and I'll make this one negative 35, and then it's just a matter of going into position and then sliding this around. And it's a little bit of trial and error. So that's too much. That's not quite enough. So let's try maybe 3.4. 3.4 looks pretty good. Maybe 3.5 works better. And then I'll slide this along the x-axis. A little bit more than that, maybe 4.2, 4.3. Either one of the 4.3 works pretty well. So now I kind of have the beginnings of my truss, and I could just continue this, adding on pieces wherever I need them, and then I can just kind of copy and paste the whole thing at the end. So for right now, if this was my entire shape, I would just have to go ahead and fuse it. Now that's one piece, and obviously you would continue this, but if I copied, if I did Command C and Command V, I could copy and paste this, and now if I translate it using my position, I could actually have the entire truss bridge. So obviously I'd have to continue this truss and then copy it that way. But the one quick way to make your truss bridge is to design the individual popsicle sticks. If, however, I wanted to do things a little bit differently, let me undo all of this. You could design the whole thing as one part, which is a little bit more tedious, but it gives you more control. So I could go into part design. I could create a new body, and using control click, I'm going to rename this as truss side 1. So now I'm not creating an individual popsicle stick, I'm actually creating the entire side of the bridge. So I can create my sketch. Again, I want to draw this from the front, so I'll do XZ plane. One word of advice before I forget is you definitely should save as often as you can, because this program tends to crash quite a bit. Now we have a few options. I can draw individual lines to get my shape, and then I can use this constraint here to connect the points. That is one way I could do it. I could go about and get that shape. Another way, sometimes you run into issues with this, but if I want to use the polyline tool, I can just draw the basic shape. Make sure you click when that is yellow at the end. And now I can set some constraints in. So I could say that I'd like this to be 24 inches horizontally. Now that's not quite the shape, obviously, that I'm looking for because I want a symmetrical shape, but I can continue to put in constraints. So let's make this bottom line perfectly horizontal. Let's say I want a 60-degree angle between these two lines. So we'll change it to 60. So as I put these constraints in, I start to get something that's a little bit closer to what I want. Let's have this side also be a symmetrical 60-degree angle. I want this top one to be horizontal as well. So now I just have to set what I want that actual height to be. You could either use diagonal to get the entire diagonal length, or you might know the height of your actual bridge. Let's say on these, for my design, I knew that these were like 6 inches. Let's see how that worked out. So that looks interesting. So what happened there? So I've got my 2 foot. Let's undo that for a second. That was interesting. So you'll find a lot of times you get some interesting things happening with this. So let's go ahead and let's try maybe the vertical one. So if I really want that to be, let's lower one at a time. No, let's make it 6 inches. Okay, not quite sure what happened. I might have entered in the wrong. Let's try that again. So if I use the diagonal tool and I select diagonally, and I want that to be 6. Oh, I'm sorry, I made it 6 feet. That's what happened. So if I make it 6 inches, that should work out a little bit better. So based on all the symmetry, I can double check, but this should also be 6 inches, which it is. So now I have my basic shape set up. This is getting a little bit cluttered, you'll notice, with all the different dimensions and the angles. So one of the things I like to do is come over here to constraints. I choose the top option. I hold select and choose the bottom to highlight everything. And then somewhere in here, I will hold down control and click. And I like to hide the constraints. They're still there. Everything is still constrained. Whoops, go back into my sketch. But it's a nice cleaner kind of document here. So, I can turn them back on and off, but I like to kind of look at it nice and cleanly. So I have my basic shape. If I close that, I can then pad my sketch, and you'll see that I have the beginnings of my truss. But I don't think any of you have a solid truss. You probably have like triangular holes cut out to represent where you don't have popsicle sticks. So I'm going to show you, if we cancel and double click on our sketch to go back in, we can actually add those. So I'm going to add 1 or 2 to show you the best way to go about that, and then I will speed up the rest and get to the end. So again, you can use a variety of different tools. I recommend the polyline tool. And let's just say that you have a triangular hole here. Well, what this is representing is that this is actually a popsicle stick, and this is actually a popsicle stick. So I drew a triangle using the polyline tool, and I'm going to force some constraints on. I'd like that to be horizontal. I'd like that to be vertical. And I actually want these 2 lines to be parallel. So I'm going to use this parallel tool. And I'm going to say I'd like this line to be parallel with this line. All right, so it's starting to take shape. We want everything on all sides to be about 1/2 inch in thickness because that's the thickness of a popsicle stick. So I'm going to say that I want the distance between this dot and this dot vertically to be 0.5. So we're actually already good there. I want the distance between this and this vertically to be 0.5. So that'll give me the 0.5 thickness. Now the only thing I don't have here is the thickness of this. So I can use this tool and I can say that I'd like that to be 0.5 and it'll move that in. Another way I could do that, if you find yourself having trouble, is you could add 2 points that are very close to one another. So at this point, these will be diagonal from one another. And I can add them to those lines, because right now, if I move this triangle, you'll notice it's not connected. I can connect them to those lines by using this curve with a dot. Select the dot, select the line, it will snap it to it. Select the dot, select the line, it will snap it to it. And now that gives me the ability to say I'd like the distance between these 2 to be 0.5, and you'll find that you get the same basic shape. So let's just make sure, 0.5, 0.5. This is vertical. Okay, so that looks pretty decent. This looks a little bit smaller, so let me take a look here. So that's about 0.5, that's 0.5. So it looks a little bit thicker down here, but that's going to be okay for right now. I probably could have adjusted these slightly, so I could have moved this up a little bit more to be more accurate, but you get the basic idea. So this is close enough for what we're trying to do. I can hide some of these. Okay, so we're starting to get the basic shape here. Now this cutout, if I go to close, will appear. And then when I pad my sketch, I will actually wind up with that cutout. And while it's probably not a perfect 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch, it's going to be close enough for us to do what we need to do. So let me hit cancel and go back into the sketch, show you how I would draw the second one. I'll use the polyline tool. Now let's say we have a kind of a triangle going in the different direction. I'm going to try and as best I can eyeball what the shape should be. Make sure it's yellow and click. And now I'm going to add my constraints. So horizontal here, vertical here. I could actually say I want this line and this line to be parallel based on my design. I want these lines to be parallel, which they already should be. Now we can start making sure that the thicknesses are fine. I'd like this dot to be exactly 0.5 inches from that dot, which it appears to be. I'd like this to be 0.5 from that dot. So this here is telling me, there we go, 0.5. Let me double check these as well. Nope, missed that one before, 0.5. Let's see here, 0.5, 0.5. Horizontally, I'd like these two to be 0.5. Close enough. So now I've got my second cutout. If I come down here again, I hide my constraints. I can view the whole thing, and now if I go to close, I can pad my sketch, and I now have my second cutout. So I'm going to continue these to get the truss cutouts all the way through, and I'll speed that up, but you will kind of quickly be able to see that I'm just doing the same exact thing. So bear with me 1 second. All right, so once you have the basic setup, hopefully yours doesn't kind of have a random piece like this, but I'm not following a design, so that was a little bit off. So once you have your final design, if you hit close, you'll have your final truss, and all you have to do is pad that sketch. Once you pad that sketch, we should make the thickness about 2/10 of an inch, because that is the thickness of a popsicle stick. And now you'll notice, actually let me save to be safe. You'll now notice that as I rotate this, I have one solid side, which is my truss. Now, yours would obviously follow your specific design, so you'll have to play around with that a little bit. But once I have that one side, I can Command C and Command V to make truss side 2. And then all I need to do is separate that by whatever your design is. So a popsicle stick is about 6 inches. So for me, I'm going to set this maybe at 6 inches. And now I have the two sides of my truss. Adding the bridge deck and adding any popsicle sticks along the top, I will explain and show you how to do in the second video. But this is a little bit more tedious, but it gives you much more control over the design itself. So you have a few different options with the truss bridge. Choose whichever one you feel more comfortable with.